liability for the product.
All right, we're live. This is so exciting. I do not know if anybody is watching us on YouTube, but if you're out there, hello. And this is the September meeting of the Toronto Perlmongers, and we're going to do some presentations. We're going to do lightning talks. Every presenter's got 5 minutes to give their talk, and then they get energetically gonged off the stage. Okay, maybe not, but that's the general idea. Sean, are you ready to present? Do you want to start, or you're busy eating pizza? Okay, you know what? I have a presentation.
The question would be, how are we presenting?
How are we presenting? Okay, right. Well, let me go back here. So I'm using StreamYard to do these presentations, and what I don't know is if so basically with StreamYard is capturing the video and sending it off to YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and look for Toronto Perlmongers on the Toronto Perlmongers account, you should be able to see this presentation. Oh, I wonder if I can make this full screen.
Okay, and you had posted that on the on the meetup, right?
Yeah, I'd.
Yeah, I see that right now. Let me just click on it.
And let me hide this. So let me have a look. There are instructions for the guests. Blah, blah, blah. Join. Now,
If I don't link, it's saying that StreamYard wants to use my mic and my camera.
Right. And I don't know if that also means it'll let you share your screen to do your presentation. I'm hoping it will, because that's why Google Hangouts is so great. Everybody could join in, and then if you want to take over, boom, you take over. Meet.com is the same kind of thing. We use it at 2 Cows.
So you're working at 2 Cows?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, well, talk about it later, but it...
Is that Liberty?
Yeah. Yeah, Liberty Village. So are you attached to StreamYard now, or are you?
I am. Let me just, I'm going to enter the studio.
Oh, there you are.
I'm going to mute myself. So you can like allow me to broadcast then?
I don't.
This is only your backstage. Only the host can see. The host may add you to the broadcast at any time you're ready. Yeah, then I've got
here we go.
Screen button.
Add to stream.
Okay, so that.
There we are.
Okay. So so I guess like you can dump me off the broadcast for now. Can you put me backstage again?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Now, I'm just trying to figure out, because it would be really convenient if you could join if you were to join the broadcast, could you then present?
No, I'm pretty sure that I can. Here, let's, here, just bring me back.
And there's Sean. Cool. Okay, I've added you to the stream. There you are.
So I'm going to share. Oh, hold on. Undo Chrome tab. I'm just going to stream the meetup tab. Can you see that?
Yes. And now.
I don't want to just do a tab. Let me just unshare that.
Cool. Okay, so it looks like if you share your screen, I can make you the presenter. Cool.
I
And
guess we don't
I've
know
just
what-
added Sean as well. All right. Well, I'll need to edit this video before we.
Yeah, you can boot me out of the studio for now and put me backstage, so.
Well, you know what? I can just
Yeah, there we go.
I can just make myself the main guy, and then
Yeah, your entire window, the application or profile.
and I'm sharing my screen. Yeah. Yes, that one. Share. And here we go. And
I might grab a Chromebook actually.
Present. Alex Beamish is also here. Excellent. Okay, well,
How many talks do we have, Alex?
you're doing a talk, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, and Alan is doing one as well. 4.
Okay. I can go at the end if you want, like I've got a talk that could be longer if we have it.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you need the time to.
Yeah, at this point, I think 4 talks will probably do us, and I'm not going to be too strict about the 5-minute thing. It's more a matter of just come and do a presentation.
Yeah, we could
Just don't make it like a half-hour thing on stuff. All right. So the many challenges of tidying SQL, and so I can be a bit of a compulsive coder sometimes. And, yeah. So I'm always interested in finding out, is there a way of cleaning stuff up? So like Perl tidy. So I had to look and, well, you know, somebody's probably already got SQL : tidy and it doesn't exist. So as I discovered, you can post stuff on Prepan and see what happens. And I got no feedback at all. And so then I decided, well, maybe I should do, so I've written some code and I've got something that kind of works. And I'm presenting about it. So people would say, why are you so hung up on this thing? So I've got some background in doing newspaper production and word processing and text formatting and desktop publishing and PDFs and runoff in general. So that's always kind of been, I've been doing this, I've been chasing down this particular thing for many years.
This is the first reference to the chevron I've seen in years and years and years and years.
Oh,
You guys went to the same school?
Waterloo. What years were you there?
79 to 84.
Okay, so you were there after, well, we overlapped anyway. Yeah, so the fall of, this is a fascinating sidebar, which I'll try and keep briefly.
I'm sorry.
The Chevron was the student newspaper, and then the Federation is, and there were a couple of communists there, as you are on any university campus, and the Federation students had a couple of rabid anti-communists, so they decided, we're closing the paper down. So a couple people, so one of the 2 employees said, well, I need to, if you're closing the paper down, I need to go in and get some papers. So security let him in, and then he said, I'm not leaving. So they started calling all the students who've been working on the paper, and then the office was occupied for the next 7 months. While that organization put out a paper. Meanwhile, the Federation of Students started up their own paper, which was crap. And the Chevron, or as we called ourselves, the Free Chevron, put out a paper, sold ads, basically paid the bills and kept the lights on. And it was a disaster. Anyway, it was very entertaining. And I learned a lot about newspaper production. Anyway, so, and you know, there's a bit of obsessive compulsive, I think, in every programmer. We've all got our own weird quirks, and people like to format their code in a certain way. You've got certain religious battles being fought about editors and tabs versus spaces, and cuddled elses or not cuddled elses and not all that kind of thing. So anyway, I wrote this. So anyway, and then there's a question of, okay, well, how do you format it? So I always like the format on the left, which is what I call a gutter style, where the keywords are on the left of the gutter. Gutter is a vertical white space, and everything else is to the right. And then I started looking at some code in Tucows, and they do this kind of indented style where the keywords are left justified, and then everything else is one tab over. And so the module I've written does the gutter style, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to need to revisit this and maybe also offer the staggered style. So, oh yeah, so there's an additional complication. It's rare you have the actual SQL just lying there in space. You've got some code around. So then the logic needs to say, oh, okay, everything up to the single quote, I need to keep that and put that exactly back the way it was. And then I need to format the SQL, and then I need to put the end of the line at the end of the thing, as is shown here. Okay, so some examples. So I did this presentation on Tuesday night thinking, oh, I'll be able to knock this out in 20 minutes. So 2 hours later, I had a bunch of examples, some of which didn't work. Aha, this one is wrong because the first field is not on the next line, as I would prefer. And I split a field name and a field specification. In fact, this is completely wrong. But that's okay, my code doesn't allow for this. It doesn't handle that. Okay, it handles insert statements. So you can see the keywords line up and you've got a gutter in the middle. So this is okay. This is grabbed from some code that I wrote about a year ago for a client. And this one, so the in the regular text is from the code, and in bold is what my program outputs. So anyway, there you can see SQL tidy, and I'm running bin SQL tidy.pl. Watch for code. A watch for code is a flag that says, yes, do that extra thing for looking for code. This is another one. So this is interesting because you can see this doesn't wrap properly, and I'm a little puzzled about that. It's a bigger one. This does wrap properly, but in fact, I like the original end and the original formatting better, but I'm not too worried about that. Here's an update statement, which did not work for whatever reason. Anyway, there's a bunch of tests, so you can see there's a bunch of select statements, insert, update, there's an if statement, and there's some other random indents. So I do have some tests, but it's all to do with forming it for a gutter. And I do have help for the command line and various pages. And I use the SQL 92 standard, this location, for figuring out, is it a keyword? And I use SQL tokenizer to grab the input and parse it out correctly. And I've also got a bunch of keyword exclusions where these are keywords that say, oh, we want to deal with this separately. So, and I haven't explained that very well, so I'll have to come back and do this again.
So you didn't write your own regex, you're using a tokenizer? I'm
using a tokenizer, yeah. I thought, oh, I can write this myself. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe somebody's invented this wheel before. Why yes, they have. So that basically gets me off the hook in terms of, oh, what you're reading is not valid SQL. Well, the tokenizer will give me a bunch of stuff. And the other thing I haven't done, so I think that's probably the next slide, Alex. Here we go. Deal with SQL within code all the time. That seems to be pretty obvious. 2 modes, gutter and staggered, and there may be others, depending on what people here think. I need settings for whether we, so I basically, the tokens are keywords and non-keywords and brackets, and commas are a special case. If I see a comma, I say, okay, just attach the comma to the last token I grabbed. Otherwise, you'd see token space, comma space, token. So, but I like to do the same thing for brackets and round brackets and square brackets. And come up with a configuration file format as Perltidy does, .perltidyrc, where you can put all that stuff into a configuration file and then you run it and you don't have to worry about it. And then finally release the CPAN and wait for the, flurry of angry bugs that you're doing it wrong or whatever. And the repo for this hot mess is on GitHub. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it.
Had you considered just using another tidy library and just kind of making this a wrapper around that? Like there's some Python stuff out there that does a fair amount of tidying. I don't know if it actually would do it exactly in the format that you like.
Yeah, it might. I don't know. That's a good question.
I think it's just called SQL tidy.
Okay.
So if you go to sqlformat.org, that there's sort of a live demo of that particular formatter.
sqlformat.org.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, this one it's just using like a Python library that you could just run the command line as well. Yeah. Well, yeah, it'd be nice if you could spawn this little bit though. I'm pretty sure this is so the formatter's on GitHub. I don't know if this site is on GitHub though. So you'll just need to scroll down for the formatted SQL.
Oh, interesting.
You do have a few options on the right-hand side.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I don't like the way it's done it. But I do like the fact that it's put each of the fields on a separate line, and that's another thing. That's another style that the staggered style gives you. So it gives you select, and then on the next line, indented, one field per line.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that, actually. That's quite nice. And in fact, for me, you want that when you're doing a create table. Each field should be on a separate line, just for legibility. Why would you smoosh it all up in that?
Yeah.
Anyway, Anyway, it's a work in progress. But I think I've been fiddling with the code so long. I feel like I should really put something up there, and that will kind of energize me into, moving it forward. And right now it's just SQL tidy, but I think I want to change it so it's, I want to separate the guttered format from the staggered formatting, although there may be stuff that they can use in common. Anyway, I just wanted to show that up because I've been thinking about it for a couple of years and writing code for the last year or so.
No, it's actually it's a hard problem, and I've got in my Vim config, I've got it set up so that I can just select some text and it'll format that. Yeah. But it would be nice if your script then could handle. I think what would have to be on standard in or something like that, like the script, so that you could then just return the output on standard out for a Vim plugin.
Yeah, and that's what my code does. And I wish I had set up on this laptop. I don't even know if I could pull the repo down. Anyway. So as I said, you'll probably see this presentation again, and I'll clean it up so that so I want to do staggered, and I want to do a better job on some of these other statements. But it's been an interesting intellectual exercise, and actually putting something on CPAN after I had a pause ID for 15 years, terrified to put anything up there.
Oh, this will be your first module?
Yeah.
Nice.
But I think it's a useful thing.
Yeah. I know that Matt Trout was working on something. It's going to parse SQL as like an abstract syntax tree. I don't think he's actually finished that, but
Who did it?
Matt Trout.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were going to, I think, replace the guts of TBIX class.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and I think there's probably lots of SQL out there that I could run through my thing. And in fact, one of the things I want to do is just build a web page that will just take somebody's input, as this page does, and will show you the format based on a bunch of different options. In fact, that's a neat URL, and I'll do something similar and just have it run through the latest version of my module. And in fact, that's probably easier to do than running it from the command line. Anyway, it'll give other people a way, so people don't have to download my module and add the command line thing to their path. They can just go to a web page and prod it and leave feedback for the author.
The only thing about that, one of my previous positions, you could not post any code to a website.
Oh, interesting.
That's what I'd seen SQL formatter.org before, and it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. Maybe it'll help save me some time, but I have to paste it to a public website.
Oh, you want to take some of the organization's code and try and format it using this thing, and that's a no-no?
That's a no.
Oh. Okay.
So
Yeah.
having it run locally on my laptop.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I mentioned that the repo's on GitHub, but it's I'm also a bit nutty about commenting my code, like a lot. So there's probably too many comments there. I should probably delete some of them.
Well, like Sean was saying, if you could fire up your app locally, that would solve that problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Think of this guy. He's probably got like hundreds of thousands of like SQL queries that are like internal code for corporations and things like that.
Well, there's a website for Postgres that does takes your analyze command.
Oh yeah.
And you put it in, and it makes it pretty, so it's actually readable.
Cool.
It is very useful. The one button it has is anonymized data. So it goes through and it changes the name of all your columns. So it's unrecognizable to somebody else, but it makes it, you'll still see the structure, so you'll know what column they've changed to what name.
Oh.
It's easy.
I'm gonna have to look at this video and get all these ideas, because that's a brilliant idea. Then just take, what I do is I take the field name and I scramble all the letters and numbers in there, so that the fields are still the same length, but they're unrecognizable.
Rock 13. Rock 13.
Rock 13, yeah.
Yeah, secure.
It's encryption, but it's weak encryption.
No, this actually substituted whole words like
Yeah.
apple for orange. Type.
And that would be another way to do it, which would be to substitute, if it's got a 4-letter word, just find a word in the dictionary that's 4 letters long, and put that in instead. I just like the idea of keeping the field length the same. That way it's easy for someone to look at and go, right, that's such and such a field. Great, really interesting feedback.
Take a dictionary, sort it by word length, and then you can simply do a random lookup.
Oh, great, and Isaac has joined us. Excellent. Okay, Olaf, you said you wanted to go at the end. So, Alan, are you able to present now?
Sure, yes. I don't have any graphics, so that's okay.
Okay. Do you want to join StreamYard, or what are you going to do?
It's just a verbal.
Just a verbal?
But, okay.
It actually looks really good.
As long as you get the audio, that's the important thing. It's my talk is simply on why you should read Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Great.
Even if you haven't read the book itself, it's had enough impact on the culture that you're probably aware of the basic story and the image of Lemuel Gulliver tied down by tiny Lilliputians.
Yes.
And if you're a bondage fetish, relax.
The mixed fetishism. There's the little people in the, never mind.
Yeah, there's the also property. Anyway, you may also be aware that the term Yahoo, meaning an uncouth or uncivilized person, actually came from Jonathan Swift. That's Gulliver's Last Voyage. But you're probably still asking yourself, why is he talking about a children's book? And in fact, Gulliver's Travels was very much a satire written for adults. The concept of children's literature didn't exist in 1725, or basically for about a century afterwards. The first book specifically written for children was published in 1744, which is 19 years later. But there was an edition that was adapted for children, published in 1727. The thing is that the late 17th and early 18th century was a time of major social changes in England. People had started voyaging to foreign lands, and on their return they'd write about these strange customs and exotic fauna that they'd encountered. So the travellers' tales of varying degrees of plausibility and accuracy become quite a thriving literary genre by the beginning of the 18th century. And so Swift took advantage of that, both to lampoon the genre itself and also to mock English contemporary society, especially the politics. A feature of his first voyage is the ridiculous squabble over, which leads to war over the proper end to crack a boiled egg. And in fact, the terminology, big endian and little endian.
Oh, that's right.
In computer architecture, that came from that.
Oh my God, you're right.
From that story. So there's a computer-related story there. Now, one of the features of the first voyage that didn't make it into the bowdlerized children's version of the story, was most of them, was about the fire in Lilliput's Parliament, which the buildings caught fire, and Gulliver extinguished them by peeing on them. A sentiment which would probably still be quite popular today.
Especially currently.
Yeah. And let me just go back. So it's the third voyage. The second one was to rob Ding Dagwood, they were giants. But the third voyage is the one which is most likely relevant to today. We got a lot of public attention on scientific development and technical development, but it's by no means unprecedented. In the mid-17th century, Isaac Newton, despite probably being the last of the alchemists, had laid the foundations for modern science, especially mathematics and physics. He invented calculus and unfortunately saddled it with a notation that hobbled British mathematics for about 2 centuries and annoyed Charles Babbage. The more computer references. So a group of learned men had begun to meet in London in 1663, and by 1665, I'm sorry, that had become the Royal Society, which is still prominent in science today, as you probably know. And all sorts of projects had been mooted and were being worked on, and the land was rife with mad inventors. The science fiction generally has more to do with social commentary on the present than technical predictions for the future, and the voyage to Laputa is no exception. Laputa, which is apparently very rude in Portuguese, is a flying island. It's kept aloft by controllable magnetic levitation. So your maglev trains are have a long precedent. If the king wants to discipline the lands over which he's flying, he simply turns the magnetism down a bit and squashes them. It's populated by a collection of what were then called projectors, but today they'd be called inventors, developers, or innovators, or just plain barking mad, depending on how close their projects were to practicality. And I'm going to quote some of the schemes. There was one to distill sunbeams from cucumbers. Images of sustainable social energy harvesting. You may remember the Grow by Chance project, in which an uneconomic oil refinery in Newfoundland was supposed to be turned into a farm for growing cucumbers, which proved equally uneconomic. That's nothing to do with Gallagher, that's just by the side. But every time anybody mentions cucumbers in connection with the scheme, that pops up. So the government subsidies hadn't rendered the oil refinery economic, and they didn't have any more effect on the cucumber growing. So, whether it's food or elimination. There was a project for nutrient recycling from food, but I'll leave the details of that for you to discover. There was a machine to shuffle words. Anybody remember Markov chains? Meant to enable anybody to write books on subjects about which they know absolutely nothing, thereby rendering entire social science departments redundant, which actually sounds rather like some of the contemporary exercises in AI. And those are just some of the samples of the projects that the inhabitants of the island are engaged. But I hope it gives you some of the idea. Now, if I do inspire you to read the book, be sure to get a good scholarly edition, one that includes footnotes, especially about this voyage. They will explain that those extraordinary projects are in fact real ones that were being pursued at the time. The author is quoted as saying that he used live examples. He couldn't conjure up anything more fantastic that would still be credible to readers. And so if you find yourself being swept along on a tide of enthusiasm and buzzwords about innovation and sustainability and whatever the current flavor of the month is, a look back some 300 odd years might help give you a sense of perspective, preferably before you've made many investments of time and money. And if Swift isn't enough to convince you, I'll back him up with Ecclesiastes 1:9. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun.
Thank you very much.
I'll have to read that.
There are different editions, and you'll find, unfortunately, the one which is currently at $6 in at the moment doesn't have the footnotes. We're trying to get hold of a scholarly. I think the Penguin one does.
Okay.
I have the Penguin one, but I can't remember.
Okay. Sean, you want to go ahead? So if you should be able to share your screen, and I'll see it here. And then I'll use my control room prowess here and put it onto the stream, and then we should be able to see it. There we are. Stream. Great. Now, I wish there was a way that I could make this full screen.
Yes, because nobody's going to be able to see that.
Well, just not here, right? Like anybody who's.
I thought about trying to find some graphics to add to that, but I don't think I would add very much.
Okay.
I guess we can all individually watch on our, or you can watch the YouTube screen from there, can we? Love that.
No, not that.
Regression.
Not that. No, that's not useful either. No, I really want this one. And I want this to be full screen.
Well, can you just click on that view on YouTube link on the, like, yeah. Full screen there. There might be some lag here.
That's okay, there's nothing that interesting.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. What?
Did we scroll down? Is it up there above? Or?
See that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So this is a bit of a different talk for me. I did have prepared slides for this talk. I gave a similar one at DCBPW in April.
Mm-hmm.
But by having the slides, it kind of ruined the effect of what is actually happening. And I don't have my glasses on anymore because if I put them on, I can't see here. And if I take them off, I can't see here. So I'll need somebody's guidance.
My glasses?
Well, just if you could see that.
Yeah.
If it's not, I can explain. So this is a quick Git. I'm going to go through a couple of Git commands. Some of you may know them, some of you may not. They're generally helpful to me. The first one to go through, and there's a huge amount of lag. I'm going to talk about Git fix-up. Has anyone used fix-up before? All right, so over here I have my Perl program. And eventually
I mean, if the lag's too bad, I'm fine with switching over to the smaller version of it.
well, what's in the program doesn't really matter. It's what it is that's happening. So when it shows up, that's what it's
I apologize about this StreamYard thing on the bottom. I've tried everything I can think of to get rid of it.
Is it like, does it need to be purchased for that to go away? Or?
Oh.
Is that on YouTube or is that on YouTube?
I think I need to go back here and go back. I can hide. Oh, there we go. Here. No.
Hey. So how legible is that?
I mean, I can read it. You could always bump up the font size if you want, but.
Wait for it to.
It's like I'll go to California first.
I don't know why it's being difficult here. Okay, let me put this over here, way up here.
Probably the StreamYard had the full screen.
Yeah, well, you know what, this is part of the AV hell that I seem to go through regularly. There's something going on with StreamYard. It would be pretty handy if that was able to go full stream. I think because it's the control room, no, you can't do it, but this has got a lot of lag, obviously.
Okay. I don't think increasing my font size would have any effect on it. It shares the application as it is.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm like I said, for me, it's fine.
Yeah, I can make it up.
All right. So I have a start of a basic Perl program here. It uses a simple module. Eventually, it'll use new and have an accessor and a subroutine.
Sorry, guys, I've got a plug-in that limits my YouTube time. Guilty pleasure. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to block myself. I forgot, of course, that I'm using.
Here. Did it ever make it through the other module or?
No.
Oh, now it's doing a resize.
That's
I know if you missed behind, I mean.
Way behind.
yeah. You wait another 10 minutes.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Oh, there's the module. That's good.
Can you
Oh, does it look like you're live?
is there like an HDMI
There we go.
cable that you could just plug into that monitor?
Yeah.
And,
You got,
I just clicked on live, and we're now live. So
yeah, but we had issues with the HDMI. We tried to do that.
Oh,
I hit enter on get status here and see how quickly it updates. Okay, so it's kind of.
5 seconds.
Yeah. So I haven't checked anything in and I don't have any commits yet. So I'm going to add my name into Git. And I'm going to give it initial commit as the message.
yes, the famous initial commit.
Okay, so I've got my 2 files committed. Now, if I switch over change to okay, so now I want to add in another attribute. I'm going to call it last name. And this just, I decided that I needed to have the last name as part of this module, so I'm going to add new code in. This is a separate commit because it's a change to the story. So I'm going to add this as a new commit with a simple message of add last name attribute. Which these are really short commit messages for me. I usually use a lot longer. You can see the pieces that I've added. I actually have a plugin for Vim called Git Gutter, and it shows the plus mark beside the lines that have been added, and then show a minus beside lines that I've removed.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very helpful, and it updates live as I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've committed that, and if we take a look at my Git one, if you can see it, I have Git aliased to G.
Yes, I saw that.
It saved me 2 letters in a command I write a lot of times. So,
Mhm.
and I often say Git in my head and will only use a G. So I try to demo or do a lot with typing Git, but muscle memory says G. So you can see my log. I have the 2 commits here. These are live. If I go over to that window, Git Gutter will eventually update. But the issue here is, and I'm sorry, you probably can't see it because this is small. I've got a problem in my attribute.
Yeah, name and last name. That should be first name and last name.
Well, yeah, that would be nice. But It's under my cursor here, right inside the is, where I have it as read write. I put a comment in there. And I've committed this as part of my initial commit. So this is a change to the code, but it doesn't change the actual story of the code that's going along. This is just a bug. And I haven't pushed this out to anybody, so nobody else has seen it yet. So the commit itself should not be I bug fixed this. Nobody should ever see it. And this is where, actually, I'm going to show up another one.
Give me a second here. I'm changing browsers so I don't get timed out.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll take time to swap over.
Come on, YouTube.
There's one person watching this stream, and that must be us.
So really, this isn't a real situation, obviously, because
So is that a turd in the
that is a poop emoji
Okay.
beside my use because what is the name of it? AL
Yeah.
has decided that I have a syntax problem, and you can see the error at the bottom, compilation failed in the require. So my name module failed to compile cleanly, and so it puts a poop emoji beside every line that has an issue.
Wow.
I have
Shame.
a yellow warning sign for whenever there's a warning, and this updates automatically as I go. I have this for pretty much every language I write code, and it does it on the fly. So I had to show it off. It's kind of cool. One day I'll do a Vim talk of all these different plugins, because I've got a number of other cool ones too. Okay, so that's it. Back to, we're going to fix the problem here. Remove the comma. And you should see immediately the squiggly line shows up. That's Git Getter saying I've changed that line.
Cool.
So why does the number start at 6?
I'll tell you that.
Okay.
In a second. So once I save this and I go back to the Perl program, you can see the poop emoji is gone.
Wow.
So the line numbering I use is relative. So the outdented number there, 4, is the physical line number. The other numbers are how many lines away it is from my current cursor. So that way, looking at it, I can say, oh, I need to go down 5 lines to reach the line I want.
Oh, so you do colon plus 5 or something like that?
Yeah, or 5J will take me down, or 8K. With a relative line number, I can get around a lot quicker without having to try and count lines.
Or you can delete 5 lines by just,
Yeah.
you didn't know how many lines you need to delete.
I know exactly how many lines I need. That's why I want to do it. Everybody's workflow is a little different.
Yeah.
You can always find something. Right? Okay, so we're going to go into Git fixup. If we do a Git status, it'll show that it has changed. I love Git add -p, so I can see.
Oh, yeah. Great command.
Now, I did do something, and I can't remember what it was that I did. But it'll actually highlight what changed between the 2 lines, so you do see the red block over top of the comma that's been deleted.
Oh, is that in your Git config?
Yeah. I think it's diff highlight is one of the contrib programs in the Git installation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does that type of highlight for you. It's very useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I said, yes, I want to commit this. Now, as I said, this commit should not change my story, so I don't want a fresh commit for this. Normally, I'm the type of person that goes through a Git log, finds the SHA, copies and pastes it so that I can reuse it for this commit. But because it's so short, I'm going to show you a different method. So what I want to do is actually fix up the initial commit here, and that's the SHA E9BE8. But instead of doing it that way, I can do git commit, fix up, and I'm going to tell it I want to fix up head and the previous commit. So this command uses git ref, any of the git reference syntax. So you can use head, I can use a different branch name, I can use the commit SHA, I can search for a commit message, all from the command line. It all depends on how you prefix the revision you're looking to do. I think it's slash, and then I can do slash initial, and it'll search for commit messages with initial and fix up.
Wow.
So this one, I'm just going to do head one previous to head, and when I fix it up, it'll show up and say my commit is a fix up to initial commit.
Sir, what do you got like some kind of suggestions going when you're done with your commit?
This is fish shell.
Oh, okay.
Fish. If you haven't used fish shell, predictive text is insane. It works on so many different levels. So as I was typing the fix up, it'll go out and find what it thinks I want to type next, and I can just hit Control-N and complete it. But it's also directory sensitive. So I do a lot of rsync at home, and I can never remember the syntax for rsync. Well, Fish knows if I'm in this one directory, I want this rsync command, and if I'm in this other directory, I want this other rsync command, and I just type R. And it goes, oh, you must want rsync, and it fills in the line. And I'm like, okay, go. It's just phenomenal.
Cool.
There's also auto completer for ZSH. If you use ZSH, there's auto completer plugin that you can use, which actually mimics the same thing.
See, I was a ZSH user, and my issue became that my configuration was so heavy to get all of these features, and I looked at Fish and like, but Fish just offers this with no plugin. So I went with Fish.
Okay.
I
Very flashy, pretty good.
It is. It's very nice for user interaction with a shell. For programming, it's quite a bit different. And I just go into Bash when I need to
Sorry to sidetrack.
No worries. That's why I did it this way. So if we look at the log, these will eventually show up. So,
Yeah, there we are.
So you can see it automatically appended fix up and initial commit as the what it's going to fix up. If you're, well, this will go into the next. So we made this next commit. What's the next thing? Auto squash. And I'm actually going to do this. Okay, so auto squash, and I'm sure a lot of you have run git rebase before. So with the what auto squash is an argument that gets added to the rebase command. And what this does is automatically look for fix-up, and fix-up has a sister command called squash. And these actually match. I'm going to show the command, but I'll come and explain more. So the command is git rebase -I, and then you need to give it a revision that you want to rebase back onto.
Or a branch, right?
Yeah, or a branch. I think right there it's auto-suggesting develop for me at the time. You can also use origin.
Yeah, you should do origin / master, yeah.
Yeah.
So do the right thing.
Okay, so I'm just going to use the initial commit.
So head caret means starting from head and 2 commits back.
Yes.
Is that the same as head tilde 2?
Yeah. Or it should.
You can like add an infinite amount of carrots, then.
That would be nice.
No, I don't like that one. This is why I tend to just.
Jeannie, maybe tilde 2?
I did tilde 2 and it's not.
No, tilde and then number 2.
Yeah,
Oh, that's,
Oh, it'll catch up.
sorry, tilde or
I'm not back far
Carrot.
enough.
Oh, you need to go back one more commit?
Yeah.
Well, it's.
Tilde
do
3?
Yeah, I'm gonna try 3. Because that's why things aren't in the right order. Invalid option.
Wait, how many commits are there? 3.
Yeah, that's why I thought 2 would be enough, because it's head and then you go back 1, you go back 2.
Yeah.
But
But 2 says it was successful, doesn't
I
it?
just want to double check it hasn't already done your squashing for you.
It shouldn't have. I'm cheating, I'm using the shot.
Didn't it say that tilde 2 was successful on there? Or?
Did I? Oh,
Yes, yeah, exactly. You've already squashed it.
So there is no 3 anymore.
Yes. Yeah, if you do a git log, how many commits are there now?
oh, I know exactly what it is. I do this often.
Or did you like ZZ or whatever?
No, so this is a problem. And in my this is what I get for doing a talk while I'm on the train. Normally when I start out a repo, the first thing I do is create an initial commit that's completely empty. And the reason is you cannot change the first commit again. So here I am trying to do a fix-up of the very first commit. Well, you can't change that commit. So that's why I commit empty.
Wow.
And then I start my
You
initial.
can't change the first commit.
No, because you're going to change that SHA. There's no way.
Wow.
So, sorry, my fix-up isn't going to work because of that. I should have had another commit. Actually, no.
You can probably put the second one.
Yeah, exactly. Just fix up the. We're scrapping some relief. I love that suggestion.
Allow empty. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so that allows you to create a commit that has no content to it, which is
Interesting.
and I have my git config set without an email address.
Oh, in case it needs to be work or personal.
Yeah, and that way it throws an error message and you can see, please tell me who you are, because I don't have an email address.
Ah,
So it prompts me every
I'm
time.
gonna have to remember to do that.
And I often forget. So that's why that's there. The nice thing is that I got.
If you remember the coding startup programs that I presented a couple of years back, sounds as though that would be something to add to that. But the first thing it does is do the git empty commit and then open up the initial program.
Okay, so now I have all my commits are back. I can take this off. So now I have the right amount of commits. Sorry about that. That's
So you need to do one, don't you need to do one more? Oh,
There's my fix up commit.
there you go, okay.
Okay, so now if I get rebase head tilt 3 auto splash. You're gonna start losing fish.
You get that? This-
Does it need to be 3 or 2? Well, I guess we'll find out.
It's 3.
All right.
So you can see the usual git commands. I have a handy plugin that shows me each commit down below what's changed. So that way when I'm rebasing, I can actually see what is part of the commit. So that I don't know.
Is that a Vim plugin? Because
Yeah. So the commands that are available, you probably run them, but pick, reword, edit, squash, fix up. So what fix up is doing is the exact same thing as you would be doing typing in fix up for yourself. It's going to amend the commit with fix up on the line into the previous commit and use the previous commit's commit message. So we're going to wind up with initial commit all over. And then it continues on with it. And the nice thing is it orders it automatically if you have the right amount of commits, so you can see the fix up is there. And if you don't have it, it says fix. So go ahead, it's rebased. I didn't have to do anything, I just said Z out of it, and it automatically continues on its way. I wind up with the commits in the proper order, and my story hasn't changed because I added a comment. So the other thing that I was thinking to show is Git 2.23 has launched recently, or been released recently. And it has brought in 2 new commands to take over for some of the load that Git checkout provides. They determined that Git checkout was doing too many things.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Right, so you're using Git checkout to switch between branches, and you're also using it
To create a branch, check out -B, although I think you can do git branch and it gives the same thing.
It does.
And you can also do git checkout file name to restore any staged but not committed changes.
Yeah. So now they've introduced in 2.23 git switch. So git switch is the branch portion of git checkout. So
interesting, okay.
Between branches or create a branch, you use the git switch command, -C for create, and then the branch name you want to create. And it'll create the new branch and check it out for you, just the same as git checkout -B does. With the branch.
Switch dash, yeah. Of course, this is useful because this is interesting, but it's not useful for me because I think we're still using like an 8-year-old version of Git.
Well, I was surprised our work development sandbox is actually upgraded to 2.23 right after the release. Oh, look, switch and restore.
Wow.
So as this shows, this syntax git switch -B creates the new branch. I can switch back to the previous branch using dash. I can switch by name as per normal. This computer needs updating because my predicted text doesn't switch.
Oh, dash, just like CD dash.
Yes.
Right.
It saves you a lot of time. Because I do that often, because I'll switch back to master, get full origin master, then I want to switch back to the branch I was just on. It works with checkout as well. It's worked forever. So you can just get checkout dash or get switch dash, and I'll take you to the previous branch and then check it.
Yeah.
I'm just finding this out now.
Yeah, switch makes a lot of sense as well, because you want to switch between brands.
So you say git checkout dash is just work forever?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Same thing.
Thanks. I didn't know that.
Okay.
And then the other one is,
Oh yeah, CO short for checkout.
yeah, I have a list for that. I know a lot of people, and working pair programming with Indy recently, he has a lot of Git aliases in his bash file, like GCO would be Git checkout. Well, for me, I'm creating bash aliases for things that are Git commands, so I can just create the Git alias for it. So Git space checkout is faster. You can always GCO or GLS, so I don't have to worry about short forming Git commands because my G is already short.
And it'll work it all over shells.
Yeah. I have to copy and paste my Git config everywhere anyways.
You don't sign your dot phones?
I do for some computers that don't have internet access. Just copy and paste the contents. It's easy. Okay, so Git restore. Good. This does basically what you'd expect it to. Oh, it's a file. Let's see. So I'm going to edit one of the Perl files that I have in Git. I'm going to make a change to it that I never intend to commit, but you know, as you're working through, you make these changes to your file and test whether they work or not before you commit them. And if you want to go back, that's what the Git restore commit is. What I was talking about is it's not a one symbol. I have a fire emoji this way. When you get a little But the interesting thing is this is Perl, so it's upset that I'm missing a semicolon, not working for content here. So then, if I add the semicolon to the line before, it turns into a emoji. Because now it's a syntax one. Okay. There. Okay, so if I save that out and we do a git diff, you can see what the change is. And then if I just use git restore dot, it's just kind of check out files the way they were before.
Get restored dot.
So there's nothing there that's changed anymore when this is done.
And it's not stashing this anywhere. It's not it's just the same as basically like a hard reset.
Yeah, so my, I did have something in my slash. I always have something in my slash.
So isn't that similar to just
It's identical to Git checker file. It's just now they're separating the means. Right? This is really what we're intending it to be, is to restore your working copy to that of the index. I just found it interesting to split these up. It's something I've been trying to get into the habit of using the new commands because I do have new Git pretty much everywhere. I could go on. This is just fun.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Hopefully you found something useful. It sounds like dashing, but didn't want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a closer look at your Belfast.
All this is from a local repository, right?
Yes. You could, well, if you have, the Git switch works, actually, I really like, one of the problems I have often is if I have a remote branch that I want to have a local checkout of on a new branch, I can never remember, do I need to have an origin in there or not? The switch doesn't allow it, and it automatically does the remote tracking branch. It automatically enables it when you switch to a branch on it.
So can you repeat that?
The Git switch command, if you tell it a remote branch, the name, yeah. So you have origin my branch.
Yeah.
If I go Git switch my branch, it automatically knows it's from the origin and sets up.
Okay, cool.
It's one of those things that's stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna switch back here. Remove that from stream. Add the stream.
Something I discovered, I was using GitHub as my backup storage mechanism, and I wanted to save my bash RC file, and the file that when I file display wouldn't show me the dot files, so I put a symbolic link with the dash removed, and then it showed up, so I was able to save the contents.
All of my dot files are symbolic links. I have a repository called dot files, and then each file is a link into that repository.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so I'm seeing like a 10-second lag. If it's okay with you guys, can we just switch back to the StreamYard screen? Like my slides don't require really a lot of close reading. Sorry, you're done, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Alan and Alex. Okay, so my talk, How to Speak Open Source, is just about how to pronounce things when you're working on computer things, because it's not always clear. Actually, first when I got here, I took a look around the room and I thought, you guys are maybe not my target audience because you've been around for a while. You know it all, right? Sachin, you're the kid, right? Maybe we could trip you up on something, but I actually did already hear something in here that I think that I am going to address in the slides. So the problem is, we're dealing with languages that are largely written but not read aloud. Like you don't get up and read your code to everybody else. So you see a lot. And particularly for me, when I learned programming, it was just mostly sitting by myself at night in front of my computer, just reading things. My education's in humanities. We didn't do any computing there. And basically, I was working on a web page, and this guy was like, "You should learn some Perl." So I did, and that's kind of how I got into it. But then and then I was bugging this other guy, and he was like, "You should really get a book on Unix." And so I sort of learned things going along, but mostly just from seeing them. And it wasn't until I started going to conferences that I started hearing how some things should be pronounced, or pair programming with someone. They would tell me to do something, and I was like, not quite sure what they're saying. I'm like, oh, that's how you say it. But is that really how you say it? Just because this person says it that way, is that how you're supposed to say it? Does it matter? That's another question. And these languages are quite dynamic because we're creating new words all the time, right? Like, you know, every day people are creating new projects and giving them some kind of a name. Now, another problem is that, you know, English is like a lingua franca here, but not all of us are native English speakers. So there can be some confusion against introduced there. Now, we may have native English speakers who weren't necessarily born in North America, who pronounce things slightly differently, and so you bring that to the table as well. Even among probably native English speakers in North America, we just don't always say things the same way, and that is going to influence how you pronounce some of these words. Some of the words are just not obvious. Some require that you need to actually know the background of this thing that we're talking about in order to be able to handle the pronunciation. Some of them are play on words because people like to be clever. And some are just made up words and they're just completely silly. Okay. So what I want to do tonight here is we're going to tackle some words one by one. This is an interactive thing, so I'm going to take suggestions from you on the pronunciations. Okay, so there are no wrong answers, except when there are. So if that's, we're going to ease into it. How does this word pronounced?
Nginx.
Everyone just agree with that? That is correct, Nginx. Now, how are you supposed to know this? Yeah. I was at a conference once and I heard somebody, he kept saying Njinx. But actually, I was like, I don't think that's what it is, but I know what he's talking about because that actually makes more sense to me than Nginx. Like, once you've heard it, you know it, right? But if let's just say you're just learning this online, you've never been to a conference, you've never heard a YouTube talk about this, what would make you think this is possibly called Nginx? Right? Okay, what is this?
CSRF.
CSRF, okay. It is an acronym. What does it stand for?
Cross-site.
Oh! I always thought that was XSRF.
That's another term for it, XSRF. But now, how do you pronounce this word? Is there another pronunciation for it? Sorry?
C-surf?
C-surf, like you're at the beach. So when your colleagues say CSRF, you can say it in 2 syllables and say it's actually C-surf. Okay?
Wow.
You actually would have to do some poking around, or you hang around web security conferences or something like that. Okay, this one pretty straightforward, which is
SQL or SQL.
Okay, structured query language. We all agree on that?
Yes.
And so pronouncing, we've said SQL or SQL. Any disagreement on that?
Yeah. Okay. I give a piece of history on this. That it was actually that IBM actually wanted to call it SQL, but somebody else had a copyright on a language called SQL at the time.
This is what I worry about when I come here. You guys know the history, right? And that's exactly correct. It was initially actually called SQL, Structured English Query Language, but there was a trademark issue. There was already another software company that had some product called SQL. So if people argue and say it's not SQL, it's SQL, there is a good argument to make that actually, yes, it is SQL.
Except, of course, there's the Microsoft's product, SQL Server, SQL space server.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, God.
Okay, now how about this product? How do we pronounce this?
MySQL.
MySQL.
Correct. This is literally MariaDB. Yeah, MySQL. It is on the MySQL site that this is the pronunciation. It is not MySQL.
Yeah. Well,
sorry,
Debian.
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 No one here for Debian?
There was a time.
Debian.
There was a time. Debian, I've heard.
No, really, that's bizarre.
Okay, why is this called Debian?
Because it's his girlfriend and his name. It's Deb and Ian.
Yeah, Deborah and Ian Murdoch. Okay.
Trivia. My brain's full of it.
Yeah, okay, listen, actually, this is gonna be easy. Okay. Okay.
GNU. I call it GNU.
You guys are good. I gotta answer you.
It's like Gary.
It is a backronym. What does GNU stand for?
GNU is not Unix.
Okay.
I take it you've heard the Flanders and Swan song about the GNU.
I saw a reference to
I'm a
it. I haven't
GNU.
heard about it.
Flanders and Swan. Yes, I grew up on that record, Alan.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to look that up. So it is GNU. If you go to this page, you can listen to Richard Tolman explain sort of the background about that. And not to be confused, of course, with the animal species. How do we pronounce that word?
GNU.
GNU.
Well, the G there is sometimes soft. On
GNU? GNU?
I believe it's.
And it has nothing to do with the Flintstones.
That was Kazoo.
That was Kazoo?
Kazoo.
Oh, my
It
memory
was like this kid's character, Gary GNU.
Yeah, Gary.
But anyway, so you can always just say wildebeest and not have to deal with it.
Wildebeest, yeah.
There is a joke which I will abbreviate somewhat about the GNU family. They get wiped out in a series of improbable events. That was the end of the GNU's Here's the Weather Forecast.
Ba-dum-bum.
Okay.
GNU.
Gnome.
Okay, well, I'm glad we have some disagreement on this.
I always put genome, but
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Genome.
Genome, there would be an E between the G and N if it was genome.
I actually like genome. I'm going to say it's not correct, but I like it. Now, yeah, so what's the acronym here for?
Yeah. Wow, it's an acronym. I had no idea. I just thought it was, GNOME. GNU Network.
GNU Network Object Model Environment, which would imply that the name is,
A recursive acronym.
yeah, GNOME.
Never heard that.
Okay. Not to be confused with, say, a garden gnome, right?
Where the G is silent. Yay,
Okay.
English. XArgs. One of my favorite command line utilities.
XRs. Anything else?
You see SARS.
You could call it Zargs. Yeah,
That
so
sounds
you
like
got something
out
caught
of
in
the
your
Marvel
throat.
universe,
If
doesn't it?
the first letter was Greek, it'd be carbs. But
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up Greek. We're getting into Greek in a minute. Okay, so, I always thought it was XRs, then I heard a friend say Zargs. I'm like, I really love Zargs, so I'm going to go with Zargs. Now, if you go to the man page, there's nothing about how to pronounce that. So I took a Twitter poll, and here's what we got. How do you pronounce the name of the command line tool, XARGS?
Oh.
The first one I said was Zargs, and then XArgs, and then XArgs, or none of the above. So people leaned quite heavily toward XArgs. You can see that was 78% of the 58 people who chimed in.
I don't know what none of the above is.
Well, then some people would suggest. So, Dave Jacoby here, he says he pronounced it like there was a hyphen in there, and it was been maintained by Professor Xavier Sargs. Then off the top of my head, there was a comic in the 80s called The X-Men, and that was pronounced Jmen. And so I say, so some people might say sharks, and he says, like if Ava Gabor was talking about sharks, the sharks are so terrible, darling. Anyway. Okay, but then to this, Paul Johnson says, if the answer is Zargs, how do you pronounce Zargs with a Z, which is the XArgs of, and we'll get to the pronunciation of that one next. But that is actually a very good question, because you've got this utility that's, how would you differentiate the pronunciation of these two things? Does it matter? So, any comments on XARGs, Zargs, before we move on? Can we agree? I suppose we'll have to go to the Twitter poll that says it's XARGs, because that does distinguish it from the other utilities, Zargs, which I had no idea about when I asked people about this. Okay, what have we got here?
Redundant.
ZSH?
I just call it ZSH. ZSH.
I call
I'm
it
confused
redundant.
on this one. I thought it's ZSH, but I was thinking it's also CZH or CSH.
Yeah, it's like CSH, right? Okay.
The Z shell, you're saying?
Is it Z shell? Yeah, is it Z shell?
Well, I think we have to give this one to the Americans. Although I hate Z, but I would say this, if ZSH is not good, Z shell, or
Because CSH is also called seashell, right?
Because it's a pun, yes.
Which I just learned today, which I wish I had slides for. But yeah, so let's see, what do we have here? Z shell. So yeah, and then my question was, and I did ask some colleagues, and one of the Canadians chimed in that he did actually call it Z shell.
yeah.
Is it shell the right one?
Shell?
What's the right one?
Well, the SH is shell,
The SH is shell, yeah.
but it's the question of, in the context, does that Z become a Z or is it a Z?
Yeah, like I wonder if you're like in like South Africa or Australia or Ireland or whatever, are you calling these Z shell as well?
Yeah.
I think most people by now are familiar enough with the variations.
Yeah. But again, and it just gets back to that problem. If you haven't heard it pronounced somewhere, you might be inclined to pronounce it, as you're inclined to pronounce those letters.
Yeah.
So there's something in Wikipedia on this, but basically, Paul Falstad wrote the first version of Z shell in 1990 while a student at Princeton University. The name ZSH derives from the name of Yale professor Jean Shao. Then teaching professor at Princeton, Paul Falstad regarded Shao's login ID ZSH or ZSH as a good name for a shell.
Wow. That's so fluky.
Yeah, that's pretty out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Apparently, Steve Bourne was English, so there's something that he named where it's definitely Z rather than Z. I forget exactly what it was.
And then I found this Twitter post where a Canadian says he actually calls it Zish, and he thinks Americans pronounce Zish. And again, and the response to saying he says Z. He does say Z shell or ZSH. So I mean, my feeling on this is probably that Z shell is correct, but it's not definitely across the board for people.
And I'm Canadian enough that I would say ZSH before I would say ZSH.
Yeah.
No, I would not say ZSH.
I've heard Americans use ZSH.
Really?
Yeah. Which is really weird.
Yeah.
Well, especially in my company, because everything's Z, and they all Z, and I'm the only one saying Z. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm trying, but I can't do it.
You're gonna rewire your brain for those calls.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like a suite of tools for this Z shell. How would we pronounce this?
Oh my zish.
Okay, so I've heard oh my ZSH, oh my zish, but I haven't heard oh my Z shell or oh my ZSH. So let's see. Let's go to the source on this, and on Twitter, how do you pronounce it? Oh my ZSH or my Zish. And he says, oh my Z shell. Or she. I don't know who the creator is, so. Okay, this one. Easy one, I think.
Sudo.
Excellent. Okay, we've got sudo and we've got sudo. Now, why would you call sudo?
You're doing something as a super user. SUDO.
Not necessarily. If I give it a -u, I can specify any user ID I want.
True.
Okay, so the meaning of this is super user do. So the thing with me is I've always called it sudo because to me it looks like the word dodo, and that's sort of my analog for that, right? But how do you pronounce it? I created a Twitter poll for this. So, and this was one of my early ones, and so I said sudo or sudo. Sudo was about 64 to 36%.
Interesting.
But it also brought up a larger conversation where now this we can't really see so well, but there's somebody who says SOO-DOH, and that's a suggestion. And I say I file it under sudo, PSUDO. And then Paul Johnson says no, it's quite different. And I say, how so? Silent P should be the same. And he says, it's the difference between, and now Paul's British, it's the difference between YOU and OO. And he says, I hope you're not going to make me look up IPA. So, but for me, I'm trying to say this in an English accent, but Alec, can you explain what's the difference between YOU and OO?
I would pronounce YOU as you, and the other one as oo.
Yeah, there's no y at the beginning.
U and oo. Okay.
So one's a personal pronoun, the other's a yelp of pain.
Is the difference what, mute and moot?
Yes, mute means silent, whereas moot means open for argument. It's a moot point.
Okay. And so what this made clear to me was that if I just say, it's like pseudo, the English word, that doesn't really work necessarily for someone who's from another part of the world. In fact, if you were German, you might actually think that was pronounced pseudo, because the P would be silent. So like it's from a Greek word where the PS is actually for psi, which is like a P and an S sound together. Sorry?
Okay, it's not spelled that way, is it?
No.
Beside.
Oh, beside, no. And so then you need to get into these phonetic pronunciations, which is like a whole different thing. And I tried to do that
Interesting.
a little bit with this word here, which is
Demon.
Damon.
sorry,
Damon.
Damon and
Yeah, Damon.
Demon.
we have two Damons, a demon.
Do you have a Julius Caesar?
Okay, so this is good. That is a good analog about Caesar, which comes to us from the Latin, right? Caesar, which would have been more like a Kaiser, which is where we get the German Kaiser from, and where we get the Russian Tsar from.
Damon. But it's an AE, right? That's a special character, but they just wanted to keep the sound.
Is a diphthong. That's correct. So two vowels that are pronounced as one, right? Diphthong, DIPH, and then thong is in the underwear. So now this is actually a really interesting one. So I took a poll on this, and this is where I tried to actually do like the phonetic pronunciation. So I was saying, how do you pronounce DAEMON, as in something keeps restarting, the HTTP DAEMON. Now my first was demon with 38%. Then I've got Damon with 29%, and then I've got daimon with 26%, and none of the above was 6%. Okay, so this one was close, but demon took it.
I think it's from the Greek, where the demon is merely a helpful spirit as opposed to an evil one.
Yeah, you're like 2 slides ahead of me, or 1 actually. So, and then Marco Fontani said, when I picture this word being pronounced like Damon, it reminds me of these scenes from Team America. And I'm wondering if I can actually get, like, if this will play YouTube through the speakers, will it? Anyway, it's basically, they just keep repeating that. Damon. So.
How is Maxwell's Damon spelled?
Sorry, which was this?
Maxwell's Damon. Maxwell's demon is you've got a box with a partition box.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a demon that only that's the fast molecules go one way.
That's a demon. That's demon. Maxwell's demon.
Oh, okay.
No A?
No, but I've always read that as DEMON, and that's pronounced demon.
I wasn't sure how it was. I couldn't recall how it was spelled.
Yeah, I believe so.
I go between Damon and M. I don't pronounce it one way consistently.
Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So we're not quite done with this word yet. Now I've got my Greek dictionary, which I rarely get a chance to use. It's called Little and Scott. There are 3 versions. There's a small, a medium, and a large. Above the medium. And this is the entry for, it'd be a little bit hard to see here, for this word. And it's, the Greeks are delta, alpha, iota, mu, and omega, and a nu. So it basically would translate it literally to something like a DAIM with a long O and an end. And my Greek professor would have told you to pronounce this as daimon. So that's kind of there's sort of agreed upon pronunciations for ancient Greek. We don't really know how it sounded because we don't have a tape recording of it. We have an idea of how some words were pronounced because of the way they might have been transliterated, say, into Latin, things like that. Although we don't have any recordings of Latin, and I don't have the linguistic chops to actually explain all this or understand it. But let's just say that that's the way it is. And so there are words that we get from Greek that have this AE in them, and in the Greek, I believe generally it is actually this alpha iota, this AI. So now the definition here is a god or a goddess, let's say in Homer, and then also in Sophocles, it looks like one's demon or genius, one's lot or fortune. In Hesiod, they're the souls of men of the Golden Age, forming the link between gods and men, later of any departed souls. And then probably what we're more leaning towards is in the New Testament, it's an evil spirit, a demon or a devil. And it's problematic here that they're actually using the word demon to define the word demon. So generally what we don't do. But anyway, so there you have it. And this is the Greek. Now, original ancient Greek is this, so I've got it up there with the alpha and iota. Mm-hmm. And this comes to us actually either as demon with an AE or demon without the A. Analogs in English are, how do we pronounce this word?
Pediatrician.
Pediatrician. It's not pediatrician.
True.
And this is also from an ancient Greek word, which is pais, which is the word for child, and that is like a pi, an alpha iota, and a sigma. So, and again, this is this AI sound. We actually do get it through the genitive, so of the child. But a lot of times these words that we get them in English, they're actually from the genitive, and genitive is the possessive, like of this, and that is this PAID, which then again in English is PAED. And then now this one, Alan, I'd like to ask you to pronounce this word.
Pedophile.
Pedophile.
Interesting.
And I know this from watching like English murder and cop shows, right? And it's like, again, this pedophile is in line with like the pronunciation of demon or pediatrician, right? So it's analog. And although Caesar would have been
that's interesting because I think you could pronounce it pedophile, but you could also say pedophile.
Yeah, and again, so this is sort of but it wouldn't be pedophile.
Pedophile, no.
Apparently there was a nasty incident where a mob was about to drag the local children's doctor out and beat him for being nasty.
Pediatrician, not pedophile.
Oh, Alan, URINAL, how do you pronounce that?
Urinal.
Urinal, okay, because it was, Neil Bauer says urinal.
No.
Or to quote one 18th century architectural document, a pissing place.
Okay. So I after all this, what I think I'd like to say is that you should pronounce demon with an AE as you would pronounce demon with just DEMON. It is essentially the same word. It's just a different spelling. Now, there is some drift towards the Matt Damon pronunciation, but I think that's probably just misguided. As in, we see this word spelled differently. We think it needs to be pronounced slightly differently. We hear our colleagues say this. That's what we go with. This is a smart person who just said this. They likely know what they're talking about. So,
but someone just added the A to make it so that it'd be acceptable with certain religious.
Yeah, so I don't.
So they probably did. I didn't think it did start. The A was added for correctness.
Well, they're trying to describe something that's going to basically run around and be a detached process, except they didn't want to say it's a detached process. It's a demon.
I think they wanted to get more of the connotation of the Greek helpful spirit as opposed to the Christian malicious one.
Yeah.
But I think they went. So the Maxwell's doesn't have an A.
Correct.
Well,
So I think they wanted the Maxwells, but they added an A to avoid problems, with the
Yeah,
right.
I think you may be right. Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, this one I think merits a little more digging into. I didn't actually look into the origins of like when this starts to come into computer programming, but I hear Damon all the time. So
Okay.
I thought this was interesting. Okay, now this will be my last example, and this is of course
FSCK.
FSCK.
okay, FSCK, FS check.
Sometimes
FSCK, yeah.
Okay. So this is an acronym for
File system check.
no. File system consistency check.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, in that case, it should be CC, but it's.
No, because it's not a compiler.
Okay, now the pronunciation on this actually, I'm surprised you guys didn't come up with any more because this is the most, I think, from what I found, the most flexible CLI utility in terms of pronunciation. No agreed upon pronunciation. It can be FSCK, FS check, Fizz check, FSAC, Fisk, Fish cake, Fizzic,
Ooh, I like that.
FSIC, FSOC, FSEC, Fetch, Fisk, Fix, Farsk, or Fusk.
I like fish cake. That's great.
Probably because it's mostly used under conditions of extreme stress.
Yeah.
So it has. There's a whole section on using it as an expletive. Where supposedly Dennis Ritchie at one point said, so FSCK was originally called something else, and they said, well, what was it called? Well, he says the second letter was different. Which leads to the usage of FSCK yourself, occasionally used online as an injunction to a person to go and correct their issue, attitude, ignorance to the subject matter, in the same way that running FSCK involves fixing fundamental errors.
Are there any that are regional? I vaguely recall that the Unix directory, which is spelled ETC, has West Coast was Etsy and East Coast was ETC.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I say Etsy, but okay, what do you guys say for that?
Sorry, for what?
ETC / ETC.
Oh, Etsy.
Or the one you call Etsy, the website.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's just Etsy.
Yeah, that one I call.
Again, it's context. But since I'm pronouncing it the same way, the context doesn't matter. No, the / ETC, to me, that's Etsy. It's because it's easier to say than ETC. I'll look at Etsy hosts, right? /Etsy /hosts. Whatever you're looking for that day. Again, too many syllables, etc. Etsy. You usually want something as brief as possible. And I think at this point, I think Etsy is in common enough usage that if you say, oh, look under Etsy for that configuration file, most people understand what you're talking about. If you call it etc., people might look at you a little funny.
But that pairs up.
It's in the etc. directory. My DSL. My parents are British. I'm allowed to make fun of the British accent.
All right, yeah. So that's what I've got for today. So
Fascinating.
I take it you know the story of the under the demon, the two guys who've been attending a BSD conference in Texas, and they were wearing their T-shirts with Please T on the mascot on them, and they stopped at a bar in some back country, and they had considerable difficulty in persuading two of the more hostile locals that they were not in fact Satanists.
Oh, free BSD, yeah.
I had to go through most of these things teaching people the basic Unix courses because You have to show them the stuff and pronounce it as well. So.
All right, this is the end of the broadcast. We've had a lovely time here.
Isaac never got to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Didn't ask that.
We've had a lovely time. We took an hour and 45 minutes for 4 lightning talks, so you can figure out the average. It was more than 5 minutes. I'll save you the math. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Judging by the absence of the logo, Jim missed the